This series, Profile of a Woman, and it's actually Profile of a Good Woman, Wife, Mother, started by asking the question, what is a woman? And we said the answer biblically and logically is a female adult human. And so I instruct and acknowledge and exhort you, don't accept any responses with subjective descriptions which never identify a definitive answer as to what a woman is. So we're going to continue, and this is the last installment of this particular series, Profile of a Good Woman, Wife, Mother. Now, in our last time together, we did launch into Proverbs 31 with the words of King Lemuel, the burden with which his mother corrected him. And we asked, why does King Lemuel start off by sharing what his mama corrected him with, even though he was wilding out? He knew the eye that mocks a father and despises obedience to a mother, the ravens of the valley are going to pluck it out, and the young eagles will eat it. Don't want them eating my eyes. And obviously, he learned he didn't want that either. His mama was trying to correct and set him straight. So Lemuel shares two things with us that his mama taught him, and that was the profile of a good ruler, which we saw last time, and profile of a good woman, wife, mother. Today is part 2 of that, but part 3 of the whole series. We learned that this woman that Lemuel's mother told him about, she's a woman of valor. Her price is far above rubies. She can't be bought. She's not necessarily dainty and demure. She's feminine, but she's a force not to be fooled with. You see, valor is typically used in a military sense. It means to be valiant like a soldier going to war. And that's what this woman is. She is ready to overtake the enemy, anything that will come against her household. And as we learned about this woman, we learned that all women have air. I don't mean just to breathe. What I'm talking about is authority, influence, and relationship. Authority is the power or right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. Influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone. And relationship refers to the emotional, engaging connection between people. Yes, a woman has air. Let's jump on back into Proverbs 31 and go through verses 21 to 25, which reads, she's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet or crimson in some translation. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. What this teaches us about us is that she covers and she takes care of her household. She clothes them with crimson or scarlet during the cold season. She makes sure they don't go outside cold and undone, but prepared for whatever the elements are going to bring. She clothes herself with linen and purple. She's not shabby when you see her. She wears clothing appropriate to who she is. And let me tell you, being frugal doesn't mean looking frumpy. You need to have a certain air about the way you carry yourself as a woman, women, because it's very important because you represent not only God, but your household. This woman makes clothes and she sells them. She has an entrepreneurial bent. Now, not all women may have this, but if you do, learn to use it and then build upon it. You can make something and sell it, or you can become a reseller. Can anybody say Amazon? However, her best clothing is her strength and splendor or dignity. Titus chapter 2, verse 4 reads, she loves her husband and her children. She's sensible, self-controlled. Her household, or that is her home, is her focus, whether she's working in it, from it, or outside of it. Jumping back to verse 23, her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Because she supports her and respects her husband, he's well respected in the community, whether it's where they live, where he works, or where they worship. Yahweh told the first male and female they were to rule over his creation together. They are similar, not equal, that they might complement one another. Each is complete by the way they've been designed. Whether you're male or female is a design, not an assignment. Verse 26 tells us that she opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. This woman shares her instruction, direction, and experiential skills with her audience in mind. Being a behavioral profiler, which most mothers and women tend to be, she speaks to each person according to their particular personal context, their way of learning or understanding. Proverbs 22:6 is the reason behind this. It tells us, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it. That is, according to the way that they've been wired by God. Because of her future focus, or focus on the future, she's firm and flexible and not rigid. Wisdom is knowing how and when to skillfully apply your knowledge and your understanding. Wisdom shows you how and when to use your time, your talent, and your treasure. Wisdom is the manifestation of Yahweh's presence in us, his purpose through us, and his provision around us. To restate the first point, wisdom is the skillful and inspirational application of information and instruction. And the Bible tells us this woman's mouth is full of it, full of wisdom. Her house is a home. You may remember a song by Dionne Warwick back in the 60s or 70s, for those who remember and those who may have seen it on YouTube. But she had a song that Luther Vandross redone, which was, "A house is not a home," right? Because just because you have the framework of where you can dwell doesn't make it a home. That is a safe place, a growing place, a fruitful place for people to be developed. She's an overseer in her home, wisely exercising the God-ordained authority to do so, as well as employing her God-designed influence to ensure she has a right relationship with everyone in that household. She's not a ruthless and rigid taskmaster. My wife and I learned some years ago that rules without relationship lead to resistance, rejection, and rebellion. People won't follow you if they only think you're just trying to tell them what to do. But if they see that you are connected with them, when you give them instructions, they have a greater inclination to follow along and be obedient to the instructions that are given. People follow those whom they can trust and relate to. As parents, we are not our children's peer friends. That's not it. We're not BFFs in that way. But we can be their parental friend like Yahweh was with Abraham and like Yeshua showed us with his disciples. And because of this, because of the way that she interacted with her household, her children declare her happy. Her husband praises her, saying, "Many women have done well, but you surpass them all." The last couple of verses kind of summarizes those things that have started in verse 10 of chapter 31 of Proverbs. It says, grace is deceptive. I can appear to be gracious. Beauty is illusory. I'm not going to say anything about the hair, eye color, and all the rest of those things that may or may not be yours from birth, but it's okay. It is her fear of Yahweh that a woman is to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and let her works praise her in the gates. King Lemuel learned from his mama and passed on to us the kind of woman a man should look for and the kind of woman every woman can use as a pattern. No, not to match in every single area, but to see as a pattern. Wherever you are in your path to womanhood, women, remember, it's your fear of Yahweh for which you'll be praised. Shalom. Before I leave today's message and service, I received a couple of questions, and one of them has to do with this issue here. This is question and response. He who finds a wife, should I go looking for a wife or husband? Or, and the question is, does God choose who my mate will be? Woo, does God choose my mate for me? Not exactly. Here's what God does. He prepares males who become men and then husbands, and females who become women and then wives. I'm aware of 2 biblical accounts where God did choose the person they were to marry. And after this, you can determine if you'd like him to choose for you or use his typical method. First time God picked a mate for someone, it went like this. You find it in Hosea chapter 1, verse 2. When Yahweh first began to speak to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, go and marry a prostitute so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution. This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against Yahweh and worshiping other gods. Oh, some people said, but he was using it as an illustration. He was, but that didn't mean Hosea didn't have to go marry a prostitute. So first matchmaking thing we have in the book, go marry a prostitute. Second time, using an angel, he tells a man named Joseph who was engaged to marry a woman that he found out was pregnant. He would say, oh, we can't do this. I can't marry her. I need to put her away, but I want to do it discreetly. I really don't want to embarrass her, but I don't want to do the wrong thing either. Well, the angel told him, Joseph, it's okay to marry Mary, even though you won't be the biological father of her unborn child. I'll give you more information on that, Joe, but it's okay to marry her. So the second time, a man is told to marry a lady who's already got somebody else's child inside her womb. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing to do, so don't think that this is that kind of an exception. But the reality is, wow, gee, I didn't think it would go this way. So, but when you want God to choose for you, you can bet one thing. If you gamble, please don't too much. He won't choose in the way that you would. What I believe is that Genesis 24, and I'm going to have you at some point read that chapter for yourself, but it shows us a picture of the typical way Yahweh expects a man to find a wife, or for a wife to be found by a future husband. He should determine what pool that she can be found in. In other words, where would I go looking for her? Will I try to find her at the gas station? Will I try to find her at the bar? Or will I try and find her amongst the community of believers, whether it's on the job or not? How is she carrying herself? But what pool? Where am I going to look for this person? Also, Eliezer, who was the man looking on behalf of Abraham's son, Isaac, he had an expectation as to how she would carry herself. You find that in Genesis 24, verses 13 and 14. I'm looking for her to carry herself a certain way. For us, we know from King Lemuel, we can look at Proverbs 31 to get an idea. We're not looking for perfection, but we are looking for progress in what we should be looking for if we're a man looking for a woman, or a woman who's looking to be found to become a wife. Now, what does all this mean from a woman's perspective? If you want to be married, be very careful who you surround yourself with. Because if you have sister girls all around you, he may say, no, if she's got sister girls all around her, then she might be just a sister girl too. And that's not what I'm looking for. So just to be aware of that. Second thing, trust God to show you favor and send you a Boaz and not a bozo. It's very possible. You got to be careful. The heart wants what the heart wants, but sometimes the head needs to connect with the heart and find out, what is God saying? That makes a big difference. Thirdly, carry yourself in a way where where a man would be glad that he found you. The Bible says, he that finds a wife finds a good thing. And you want to be a good thing that he finds. As it mentions in Proverbs 31, the man trusts in his wife because she does him good all the days of his life.